In this lesson, we'll learn how to create and fire custom events from display objects. Especially if you're coding a game, custom events are useful for registering state changes in objects and across the system. Here, we'll look at coding a bare-bones state machine using custom events. Before I start, I'll review what I've got in code. On lines 8 through 53, I create a new button class. Then, on lines 55 and 59, I'm instantiating that class and assigning it to variables called foo and bar. Finally, on line 63, I've created a new text display object and have positioned it at the bottom of the screen. To start, I'll go back to the top of the code and create a new state machine variable. I won't assign anything to this variable just yet. Instead, I'm creating this reference so that I can use it within the button class. I'll define the variable at the bottom of the code. Creating a custom event is just like creating any other event in Corona. As with Corona events, custom events can only be assigned to display objects. One restriction, however, is that custom events can only be assigned to display objects. So what we'll do is create an empty group so that we can use custom events without anything being on screen. We'll start by assigning a new group to the state machine variable. Then we'll add an event listener to the state machine variable that listens for our custom event. For the argument, we'll provide the name of our custom event. This can be anything we want. Here we'll call our event fire. We'll handle the custom event with the state machine object. Now we'll begin our code for the fire event handler. We'll create 3 different states for our fire event and listen for them. Eventually, we'll be setting some text of the text display object according to what state we're in. Before we do that, we'll actually fire the events from the button class. We'll move up to the touch event handler in the button class. Within each of the phases, we'll fire a custom event. To do this, we'll type the following. Each display object has a dispatch event method for firing custom events. As the argument, we'll provide a table with a few properties. The first property will be the name of the event to fire. This name is the same as the event that we're listening for, here, fire. All of the other properties are optional and completely customizable. So we'll create a state property and a custom data property. The state property is the state, or in the case of touch events, phase that we're listening for. For custom data, we'll simply set some custom data. This really could be anything. We'll repeat this process for both the moved and ended phases for the touch event handler within the button class. Now I'll change the state properties and custom data properties. I'll head back to the fire event handler. Notice that the .state property corresponds to the state property in dispatch event. Each of the properties that was in the table passed through dispatch event can be accessed as a property of the event within the fire event handler. So we'll set some text to the text display object. We'll create a local variable to store a custom string. Then we'll set the text property of the text display object to t. We'll repeat this for the off and moving states. For the moving state, we'll simply set t equal to e.customData. Let's take a look at the result in the simulator. As I tap the buttons, the events are fired. If I drag them, then I get e.customData, which within the state machine is represented as e.state, and then I'm setting the text property of the text object to e.customData. The benefit of using a state machine is that we can centralize all of our logic in our application. This way, we're not having different logical components within different objects. This ends our lesson on how to create and fire custom events from display objects.